Well, hello, all you, my dear lovelies out there, here in old little town of Bellingham, Washington, and in the galaxies and the universe beyond. Visually, you're going to be enjoying some random walking around our beautiful Western Washington University here in Bellingham, a wonderful university. I go to some classes, namely swimming and singing in the choir. However, you will need these visuals to cope with myself talking about my experiences in a prep school. When I was a teenager, oh my gosh, those are very different days than now. I went to a prep school by the name of Tabor Academy. Prep schools, in case you don't know, are generally private schools with a boarding student population with grades 9 through 12, which is high school. They have an interesting purpose in life that sometimes does not match the reality of life. A prep school is supposed to teach strong academic skills to work your way to the Ivy League. In addition to that, and perhaps more important, is to build a strong moral character, a person who will work their way towards strong, clean leadership of our society. I enrolled in Tabor Academy in the fall of 1969 in my sophomore year. I skipped the freshman year because of public school. Now, please picture this. Myself, Mark Allen, and a geeky, shy, autistic teenager walked into this beautiful, bucolic campus with a nice waterfront setting on the shores of Buzzards Bay in Marion, Massachusetts. The images you see, both of myself and Tabor Academy, boy, did they not reflect what is deep down inside. The bucolic setting was shattered less than 2 months after my first enrollment. I went to a chapel service in the beautiful chapel on a Sunday evening. I was running late, so I had to sit near the back. I sat next to a nice, sweet, elderly woman whom I met before and whom I knew was the grandmother of one of the students. The service began with singing the hymn, the Almighty God of our fathers, the invocation from the minister, then the choir rose to sing Amazing Grace. A tear rolled out of my eye just before all hell broke loose. Bright lights flashed from somewhere behind the organ and the choir, accompanied with the sounds of loud, large firecrackers, 20 of them going off all at once. The woman shrieked. I reached over to try to comfort her as bedlam started to erupt in that building. The service was ruined. Looking back on this as an adult, I realized that I behaved quite well considering I was shy and autistic. First of all, I was able to calm the woman down. Then, looking around with the ensuing bedlam, I carefully got up along with her and I escorted her gently outside the building. She thanked me very much and she walked away to find her son. I walked home quite angry. Does this really reflect proper moral conduct? The headmaster scolded us the following morning at the obligatory Monday morning meeting. A couple of days after that, I was seated in our wonderful dining room that overlooked the water, and I was listening to a conversation in the next table. A student was boasting how he took a candle and 20 firecrackers and snuck into the chapel on Sunday afternoon and set them up in a little hidden space behind the organ, arranging them so when the candle burned down, it would light the fuses of the firecrackers. He lit it at 4 p.m. The candle burned all the way down until, as the choir was finished singing, it set the fuses of the firecrackers, and then they went off. I was very, very disgusted. As the year continued after that event, the headmaster started to become aware of the very strong hobby I had in electronics, and soon he trusted me enough to have me fix the school's electronic equipment, PA systems, the movie sound system, the intercom, and he had me restore 2 Hammond B3 organs. Well, that was nice, except it did create a very rude interruption to my peaceful life. That spring, like all schools, Tabor Academy brings in a professional photographer to take the obligatory yearbook portraits. He set his camera equipment in an unused classroom. Then he, as long as everybody else, went to lunch. During lunch, I saw the headmaster walking quickly toward me as if I'm in trouble. He tapped my shoulder firmly and directed me to follow him. On the way over, he said, "Mark, something has happened to the camera. Can you please take a look at it?" I realized this is something that he was not mad at me about, but just asking my help. We went into that classroom, and I took one look at the shape the camera was in, and I damn nearly wet my pants. The lens was broken. It was worthless. The photographer asked me if I could fix it, and I said no. The photographer then turned to the headmaster and said, "I'm sorry. We're going to have to cancel this. I have to get a new camera. It'll be about 2 weeks before we can take pictures." The headmaster looked very angry, but he first dismissed me and thanked me. I walked away. Again, is this reflecting true moral character? This and other smaller incidents, students stealing stereos from other students, set the stage for a fabulously weird but delicious incident that affected my life for 40 years. First of all, as I mentioned, I have a strong hobby in electronics. While that hobby helped the school and the headmaster keep their equipment running, it also allowed me to become a professional television repairman. I was fixing TVs by the 5th grade in school. A little bit more context. Tabor Academy did have a rule that boarding students could not bring television sets for their rooms. I did not know that because, once again, I was a lowly day student. Well, I decided to try to apply a little bit of business leadership and entrepreneurship, which is part of their goals, to start a little business on the side to take TV sets from the dump, repair the TV sets, and then sell them to the Tabor students who were boarding students. Well, the business failed after selling one TV set, and the reclamations is what lasted for 40 years. A student wanted to buy a TV set from me. I found one at the town dump that was small enough so he could slide it under the bed and hide it when they had room inspections. Well, a week or two after the student took delivery of the TV set broke down. It was on a Saturday morning. I was having breakfast with Mom and Dad and my family in our family home, and the phone rang. Mom answered it. She jumped, startled, and gave it to me. "Mark, that student sounds very angry," she whispered in my ear. I took the phone from her hand, and yes, the student was very angry that the television broke down when the student wanted to watch the Saturday morning cartoons. "Mom and Dad, I need to go to the school right now. There's an electronics problem." They nodded sympathetically. "Go ahead, Mark, but please remember to try to come back to lunch. We have friends coming over." Frightened, I ran downstairs, grabbed some tools, and then began the walk to the campus. While I was walking on that beautiful campus, unfortunately, there were many pieces of context that I was completely and blissfully unaware of. First of all, the previous year, as that boy went to public school, he got into lots of trouble and failed that year. His father was the type of person who believed to solve a problem with a student is to throw money at the problem. I mean lots of money, well into 5 figures. So he sent the boy to Tabor Academy as a boarding student, which is not cheap. Along with the habit of throwing money at problems, the boy's father had an attribute that almost got me in serious trouble. The boy's father had severe anger management issues and a very quick temper. The second piece of context is that the boy was already in serious trouble at Tabor. There were a few disciplinary problems earlier in the year, but also the student was performing well below the mandatory 75% point average, which means that he was in academic probation, which means that he has to go to a supervised study hall. And that means he should not have been in his room waiting for me to repair his television. Now, on top of all that, The boy's father decided to make a surprise visit to the school that very day to make sure his boy was behaving himself. Most likely, as I was walking in that campus, the boy's father must have driven past me, unknowing that I was heading to that boy's room. The rules require parents to stop in at the headmaster. That was part of the customer service provided by the school to its paying parents. The headmaster would drop what he's doing and escort the parent to the boy. Well, the headmaster started with the supervised study hall. Oops! Nope, no boy. Then he led the father to the library. Oops! No boy. Well, next stop is the boys' dormitory. When they arrived at the dormitory, the headmaster led the boy's father to the dorm master. Then they came toward the room. If I had not been concentrating on the problem in the TV set, I would have been warned. Loud voices came from the hallway toward the door. There was no courtesy of a knock. The door burst open with a crash. In came 3 men. The headmaster on the left, the boy's father in the middle, and the dorm master on the right. The boy's father was purple with rage. I panicked. I grabbed my tools and stood up fast, and I started to bolt out. The boy's father tried to grab me, saying, "Who the heck are you?" I was able to escape his grasp, and I sprinted down the hallway, down the stairs, and out of the building, continuing to sprint on home. As I passed the window to the dorm room, the voices were very, very loud. The boy's father was screaming. I was scared. What was scary then is, what if I had been unable to escape the boy's father as he grabbed me by the wrist? Would he have beaten me right there in the hallway of that dormitory? That question still scares me now. I trembled as I got closer to my family's home, scared that Mom and Dad would scream at me, having received the phone call that the headmaster should have made to my parents by now. I opened the door and went inside. Well, Mom and Dad simply greeted me. Mom said, "Oh, hi, Mark. How did it go?" Conflicted, I quickly said, "Well, it went okay. How are we doing for lunch today? Can I help you?" They responded, "Certainly. Why don't you help cut some lettuce for lunch?" I was totally unbelieving. Why did they not react? Because due to the headmaster's call. For a whole day, during the beautiful lunch with our neighbors, and then later on the evening dinner, nothing happened. There was no indication in my parents that they got the call. This waiting for nothing took all week. For me, if I'm facing discipline, let's get the darn thing over with. The waiting was terrible. I went to school that week expecting something, at least something, but absolutely nothing. My teachers did not say a darn thing. The other students still greeted me normally. During the sailing practice that afternoon, the coach said nothing to me at all, and looking at everybody in the eye, I did not discern the kind of look of people giving to me if I was in trouble. This was like excruciating pain when nothing happened. The following Saturday evening, the faculty member who ran the Saturday night movie show called me at home and asked me for help with the projector's sound system. It was a typical normal call, which to me was excruciating pain. I went there to the auditorium, set up and made sure the sound system worked. Then I stood in the back of the room to make sure everything was okay. At that point, I felt an arm gently draping over my shoulders. I looked and it was the headmaster, but he was not angry. He said, "Mark, can you please do not sell TV sets to my children? I want to thank you." He then walked away to talk to a student, and I was left alone and adrift. This torture lasted throughout the rest of the year. My grades might have suffered in the beginning of it, but I started to get over it and realized perhaps nothing will happen. It got easier and easier over the years. Then I graduated and went to college and engaged in my career as an electronics engineer. Well, I decided 40 years later to come with the truth to my parents. In around 2005 or so, I called Mom and Dad. I think it was Mom's birthday. And I said, "Mom and Dad, I need to confess something. I broke a very important rule at Tabor Academy 40 years ago. I should have heard from you when the headmaster called to report me." Mom paused and she said, "No, nobody called us any time about you doing anything." And that point, the three of us burst out laughing. After we laughed out, I said, "Mom, what I did wrong was to sell a TV set to a boarding student." We laughed again, and Mom said, "My gosh, Mark, please do not worry. That was a long time ago." Then I began to wonder, why did the headmaster not even call my parents when I broke a serious rule? I never got an answer, but I got a clue later on in around 2020, when I here in Bellingham, I called my younger brother who went to Tabor after I graduated, and I got a clue. The headmaster started into some serious dementia during his second and third year, which was about 5 years after I graduated. So perhaps did he forget the whole thing? But then there was a more ominous clue I saw on a Facebook group for Tabor Academy alumni. Apparently, 2 years after I graduated, the school came within 2 weeks of closing its doors due to bad finances. So I started to piece together a possible scenario. As you know, my hobby in electronics allowed me to keep all the electronic equipment in that school running in good order, which includes a full restoration of 2 Hammond B3 organs. That most likely saved a lot of money for the school for the course of those 2 years. Could that pile of money have been enough to keep that school going those last 2 weeks before they get a big financial donation? We don't know. Now, let's look at all the implications of morality, ethics, character, and citizenship on the part of both the school and myself. We don't know, were there any ethical or moral issues in how the school's finances were handled that led up to the near disaster during my younger brother's enrollment? We don't know, and I really don't want to know. Yet another thought. Could the fear of the money situation been going on when I was there? And are we in a case where the headmaster felt that he needed me more than I needed him? What if I had left? Perhaps the headmaster's nightmare could have come true. Now, let's look at myself. As I said, I was a nerdy, shy, goofy, autistic student who really never got into the groove with the other students. I was a loner on that campus. After graduating, I only had faculty as my close friends. And I was autistic. Now, we know now that autistic people tend to be much more analytical and good at remembering technical detail and loving to learn technology and engineering. Some of those were the positive attributes of autism. Could myself, through my autism and my interest in electronics, actually exemplified solid moral character and citizenship, whereupon I applied my strengths to keeping the school's electronics running and saving the school the money. As you know, prep schools are supposed to instill strong leadership, strong morals, and strong ethics in their students. Well, it seemed like in this case, it was my consciousness that allowed me to do this without the school's help. And my autism now, of which I'm proud of, still helps me in my technology career. So I think that's it. With all of my videos, of course, if you see me dancing around anywhere, stop me and say hi. And let's talk about prep schools and ethics and morals. And of course, from deep within my heart to you, may I bequest my love. I love you all. Goodbye.